Okay, this week we're going to be doing a hand drawing of the vibrator arm here, exercise 7.25. And we're going to be doing it on a B-size sheet of paper. And then this week, next week, you got 2 weeks for this assignment. We'll actually be tracing it onto a piece of vellum and applying the dimensions there. So if we look at this object here in the book, the overall length is going to be 4.12 plus the radius of the end. And I'm changing the radius from 0.81. We're going to change it to a to a 7/8 of an inch because we don't have a circle in our templates that will work with the 0.81. So we're going to change the radius of the end of it be a 7/8. So your overall length total is going to be 5 inches. Okay, so we're 4 1/8 here and then 7/8 there. So the overall length is going to be 5 inches. The overall depth is 1.5. The overall height is 1.94. So you just follow the extension lines to where they intersect the objects. Okay, and so you'll calculate your spacing like we've done in a couple of the other drawings. The overall length here we're dealing with 16 inches. The height is 9.5 inches. And just with here you'll subtract the 1.5 and the 5. You got to add those two numbers together. And so I've already done that, and I've laid out where my views are going to go. And so I'm going to start drawing on my front view, and since this is in decimal inches, you need to convert those to fractions. It's just easier and more accurate to draw with the fractional scale than it is the engineered decimal scale when you're having to estimate hundredths of an inch in the decimal there. And so I've got this little chart that I made up several years ago, and I made it small enough that I just lay it on my drafting table here so I can read it. But in the rear of the textbook, you got a very similar chart right here that you can convert from fractions to decimals of an inch. Okay. So now then, my height was 1 15/16 for the overall height. And so I'm just going to, the only difficult thing with this drawing is going to be the radius 0.5 at the bottom. So I'm not going to talk through a lot of the stuff. I'm just going to draw and let the video run, and then when I get to something I need to explain, I'll start talking and slow the video down. Okay, now this part across the top, to get the location for this angle, from the very end you would measure over 3/4 and 1.88 and then come back 3/4. Or, since these are identical, you just measure 1.88 from the end, and that gives you the top of the 60-degree angle. And I drew in the top. It's like 1.19 up, so I've got that drawn in. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to a darker pencil so you can see the object as I'm darkening it in. Okay, so next let's do the circle at the end. Like I said, we're going to change it to a 7/8 radius, which gives me a 1 3/4 diameter. Okay, the deal across the bottom, we got a radius 0.5 arc that's tangent to the horizontal line here, running across the bottom here, but it's not at the quadrant where it joins the very bottom of the object. So we need to measure back the 1.62 and give us a marking point to where it will intersect. Okay, and now we take a 1-inch diameter hole, and we want it to be tangent on the top, but intersect at that point on the right. So it's going to take a little moving of your template to get things lined up right. And then we've got our vertical piece right here. Okay, so other than holes and hidden lines, we've got the chamfer still to do. The front view is kind of done. So let's look at the chamfer. It's a 0.25 by 45, which means it's 0.25 in both directions. So we'll go ahead and make our mark at 1/4 inch. There's the chamfer. The hidden line, okay, the slot across the bottom is 0.19 tall. And that's going to be a hidden line, but because we've got things that are going to be intersecting, and with the hidden lines, it's not quite so accurate on your spacing, as long as you realize they're a hidden line that you're going to be drawing. Because we're going to have some other things coming down through here with the holes. So there's that one. I'm going to wait about the holes until I get them located in the top view, but I can do the hole going through the side here, which is a diameter of 5/8. Oh, I didn't mark my center mark here. Okay. Okay, and other than my two holes coming down through, that's got the front view pretty well done. So let's go to the side view, and we're talking 1.5 wide, right? Yep, got that. The rear and the front surface go all the way up. The top goes all the way across. This goes all the way across. But we have the slot here, so I'll need to measure for my slot. I got the hidden line here for this surface. And then that vertical coming down, that was 0.75. Now, back in the day, we're doing hand drafting a lot. The way you drew hidden lines were important, so that if a hidden line, it indicates a plane, and if it does not intersect another plane, you leave a gap. Like in this case right here, this hidden line, the plane for this portion here, does not intersect this plane, which is this one, so we would leave a gap in the hidden line. Now with AutoCAD, you can still do it. You have to break the lines. With Inventor, it just doesn't work anymore. Okay, but here this surface does intersect this surface, so those need to join together. And then sometimes with the hand drawing, since we're doing it here and we're going to trace it to vellum, I'll leave the gaps if I can. It's just when I come back to do my vellum drawing, my tracing, then I will get it accurate and correct. Okay, and so now let's do the hole here. Okay, now for the top view. And I'm going to put my miter line up here. And I'll go ahead and project the center here. Well, since I'm projecting, I'll go ahead and do the ones for the slot also. Okay. And now bring across those important ones, the front edge and the center. I'm going to draw the center all the way through. And now I can, yeah, I got that too. So I can project up from my front view the things I've got here. Okay, now I'll go ahead and start drawing in my my top view. I'm going to start with the chamfers. Okay, and now let's see, I can do this hole. Okay. And the slot here, I'm going to wait until I get my two holes drawn before I draw the slot, since the slot is hidden lines. So let's let's look at the holes. The first one is 0.75 in. And then it's 1 7/8 from there. Here. Okay. Okay. Now the hole on the right is a 5/8 diameter, because the note on the book there shows 2 times diameter 0.625 with a tolerance of 623. So we'll go with a 5/8 diameter hole on the right side. Okay, and the one on the left is a counter bore, so we've got 2 diameters and a depth. And the first number, if you remember reading through the part there in the textbook on holes, the first number, 0.5, is the diameter of the through hole, and then the second one is the diameter 0.75, which is the actual counter bore. So let's go with a 0.5 diameter. And then a 0.75 diameter. Okay, and now we can deal with our slot. Well, I got that one off just a little bit, didn't I? Okay, so our slot is going to project up and over, but you see it terminates at this point right here. So I need to project that up. And now I can take my lines that I projected here for the